Hi friends, welcome to IAS and College Connect YouTube channel. In this videos, we are going to discuss about what is JDBC. Let's proceed into the sessions. So what is a JDBC? JDBC is nothing but it is a database connectivity and it is used to store the data which is we are going to given from Java applications. That data will be going to store it on the database. For example, here you see if this is a user, they are going to feed the informations on the system means that informations we are going to store it on the database with the help of JDBC concepts. We are having four different types of drivers. One is going to be type 1, that is a JDBC ODBC bridge driver, and the another one is going to be a type 2, that is a native API driver. Another third one is going to be network protocol driver, and the fourth one is going to be a thin driver. So currently we are going to use the thin driver in this applications. Let's see what are the drawbacks which we are having on all the other three drivers, then why we are using the thin driver. So in the JDBC ODBC drivers, the main drawbacks we are having is it is a platform dependent and it is a slower performance because it contains a multiple layer and it requires ODBC setups on the client machine. And it is not suitable for the web and productions environment and it is removed in Java 8 and later versions. But so when we can use where we can use this type 1 means, so when you're going to develop an applications, that is for development as well as for the testing, but it is not recommended for the production purpose. So hope you understand what is a type 1 JDBC ODBC bridge driver. Moving to the next one, that is a native API driver. What is a native API drivers? Contains the drawbacks. What are the drawbacks it contains? The main drawbacks, it is a platform dependent and it requires a database client software to be installed on the client machine and not portable, and setup and deployment are more complex than pure Java drivers. And then use case, so will be useful when type 3 and type 4 are unavailable. At the time we can go with this type 2. Then we are moving to this next type 3, that is driver, the network protocol driver. The main drawbacks we are having on the network protocol driver is it separate the middleware servers is required between the client and database. This add the complexity and cost. And it also contains extra networking hop. And because of that, the performance is slower than the type 4. Here, the next drawbacks we are having is deployment is more complex when it is compared to the JDBC driver like type 4. And if the medieval server is failed, all the data access fail. There is high availability setup is required. Then use case where we can use this type 3 means, so it is ideal for the applications accessing multiple database simultaneously. So at the time we can go with this network protocol layer driver. And the next one which we are currently going to use, that is a thin driver or native protocol driver. Here in this thin driver, the main advantages we are having is no native core or multi middleware is required. That is a direct communications with the database. No translation is layer is required. Just include the jar file. No DB client software is needed. Here the main drawbacks we are having in the type 4 is you need different driver for different database. For example, if you are going to use a MySQL, you need to have the MySQL drivers. In case if you are going to use Oracle, you are going to use Oracle driver and tightly coupled with the specific database protocol. These are the four different types of drivers we are having. Let's see the implementation part. Before we are going to see the implementation part, so we need to know so what are the steps involved in this to perform the JDBC operations. The steps, first one is we need to load the driver, and then second one we are going to establish the connections. In these connections we are going to mention the URL and then username and password, and then we are going to use prepare statement or callable statement for writing an query. The prepare statement, when you want to pass an argument, So at the time you can go with this prepare statement. For the statement, you want to write the simple query, you can go with this statement. And then callable statement, when you go with writing the procedures for executing the procedures or creating and procedures, you can go with the callable statement. So once you return the query, then you need to execute, right? For executing this, you're going to have the different types of methods. For executing the insert, update, delete operations, you're having the execute update method. For performing the retrieval operations, you're having the different method which is called as it is going to be execute, and it is going to be return the values in result set format. Then after that, you're going to close the connection. Let's move to the implementation part. So first what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create one simple package. The package name which I'm going to give is JDBC PGM. Okay. So under this, I'm just going to create one class which is main class. So here, before we are going to proceed, so let's see what is the use of driver, how to add the driver into your application. So here you see this you. Okay, so you are typing the code on your computers. You want to make the communications to the database. This is a database. Okay, so this is your Java application. You want some drivers or some program which should be make this communications to be smooth between your Java applications to the database. For that, each application, each database can have the separate driver. For example, if you are going to communicate with the MySQL database, there is a separate MySQL driver is there. In case if you are going to communicate with the Oracle, there is a separate Oracle driver is there. You need to add that add driver into your Java application. So for that, first you need to download the driver. For that, you need to go to the Google and then just type Java MySQL connector. So just move to this particular website. Here you can mention the which versions is required. So in case if you want the versions which I am going to use is 8.3.0, just choose the versions, and here I am just going to be mentioned platform independent. So once you choose this, it will be going to show this screen. In this screen, you just click the download button. As I already download and save in my local system, okay, so I'm just going to use it. Once you click the download, it is going to be download in zip format. Just extract it, and then you'll be going to find the jar file. So now as I already told that I already download it. Okay, so here you see I'm just going to add that jar file into our application. This is our project, right? Right click, properties, and then go to this Java build path. Here you will be find this libraries, right? Okay, so under this library, okay, so you can choose this class path and click add external jar file. Okay, so it is going to be show this pop-up window. In this, you can pick where you're having your jar file. So I put my jar file in the desktop locations. Here you see MySQL connector. Okay, so just choose the jar file and click open and apply and close. Once you click this, you'll be find this referenced library. You'll be find this driver is added to your application. Now we are going to start writing the code. So how the scenarios is going to be? Okay, so now I'm just going to get the values from the user. For that, I'm just going to create a separate class that is a main class. So whenever I'm going to get the values, I want to get the values through or store the values in the POJO classes. That is a data encapsulation classes. Through the encapsulation classes, I'm just going to store the values to the variable and get the values from that particular variable. So first I'm going to create one POJO classes. So for that, I'm just going to create one registration student registration. The class name is what? Student registration. Here, I'm just going to create four variables: private, int id, and then private string name, and then private string department, and then private string department and um, address. Okay, so here for all this variable, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a getter and setter. Right click, and I'm moving to the source. In the source, I'm just going to click the constructor using field. I'm just going to choose all the constructor and click the generate. Then I'm just going to create a getter and setter. Now I'm going to create a getter and setter for all this variable. Source, click generate getter and setter. I'm just going to choose all the values and I'm going to click generate button. Now you see we are created the four for getter setter for all the four variables. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write the code now. Okay, so under this class, so I want to read the input from the user, right? Okay, so for that I need the scanner classes. So scanner s equal to new scanner. Then I'm just going to have the system dot in. Okay, done. Okay, so now we want to access those getter and setter which is there in this particular class, right? So for that, I just want to create an object of the particular classes. So I'm just going to create an object for the particular class so that sr equal to new student registration. Okay, so here I want to create one empty constructor to source action constructor from superclasses, empty constructor. Don't want this superclass. Ah, okay. So done. Okay, so here we have created one empty constructor, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create one method for performing the adding operation. Why? For that, add data. What this method is going to do, it's just going to read the input from the user and it is going to be make the networking call. So for that, I'm just going to use system.out.println. I'm going to give the variable, enter the name. Okay, so enter the name. Once the user is going to give the name, okay, so we are having the variables, right? Okay, so we are having all the variables in the Pojo classes. So we are going to use the getter and setter method. Okay, so to access all the method which is there in this particular classes, we need to have the object of this particular classes. So already we having the object of the particular classes SR. So I want to assign the values to the variable so that SR dot set name. In this set name, I'm just going to pass the values. Okay, so name is what? It is a string. So that I want to pass the string values. I'm going to use the next method. S dot next. Done. Okay, so then I'm just going to get the next values for the next variable. Okay, so what is the next variable? It is a department, right? Okay, so I'm just going to be type the enter the department. Enter the department. Once a user is going to solve this statement, the user is going to give the values. So we are going to use the SR. Okay, so here is the department variables on here. To assign the values to this particular variable, so we having the getter and setter for this particular variable. Okay, so getter is used for get the values, setter is for set the values, right? Okay, so we are going to assign the values so that we are going to use the set department. So here I am just going to pass s dot next. Then I'm just going to get the values for the another variable that is address, right? Okay, system dot out dot println. I'm just going to pass the message enter the address. Enter the address. So now we are having the variable. Okay, so which is address. So we want to pass the values to Pojo classes. So that I'm just going to use the setter method. So here I'm just going to use s dot next. You may have the doubt in your mind why we are not passing the values for the ID. So in the database, I'm just going to create this ID is going to be what? Auto-generated key. Okay, right. So once we received all the values, we need to perform the insertion operation. So for that, we need to follow some of the steps which we already discussed. Here you see what this first step, we need to load the driver, right? Okay, so already we had the driver in our project, but we need to use the driver in our application. So for that, we need to use some of the code. So first thing, we need to use class dot for name method. Inside this, we need to mention the driver name, exact driver name, which is used for make the communication from your Java applications to the database. So for that, we are going to use com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. This file is present on this particular jar file. So you want to know means just click this jar file. You will be find this com.mysql.cj. So here you see com.mysql.cj is there. Under this, which file, which package we are going to access? JDBC. com.mysql.jdbc. com.mysql.jdbc. Here you see we are having it. com.mysql.jdbc. Under this, which class we are going to access? We are going to access this driver file. So this driver file is useful for make the communications between your Java applications and to the database. So now why it is throwing the error means, so it is a class, right? Okay, so it's going to be through, it should be surrounded by the exception, try and catch block. Okay, so it is going to be through class not found exception. So that we need to surround this by using catch block, which is called class not found exception. Class not found exception. CNFE. Okay, so here I'm just going to be print those informations in the system.out.println. CNFE. Done. Okay, so what's the next steps? Next steps we are having, once we load the driver, we need to establish the connection. Okay, so for that we are going to have the connection variable. Connection con equal to driver manager dot get connection. Here you see, in this we need to pass three arguments. One is going to be URL, next one is going to be username, and next one is going to be what? Password. Okay, so here we are going to mention the URL name first. So here the URL name you need to, how we can able to remember means, so here first you see we given the MySQL, that should be followed by the JDBC. But what we need to do here is, first we need to give the JDBC, then we need to give the MySQL. Okay, so first we need to give the JDBC. In this, first JDBC colon MySQL colon, then double slash. I'm going to give the localhost colon the port number 3306. The default port for the database is 3306. Now that should be followed by the database name we need to give. As of now, we are not created the database. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create a database and we are going to create a table structures in the database. So for that, I'm going to open the MySQL workbench. MySQL workbench. Here you see, while we are opening this, so it is going to show that the URL endpoint, that is a localhost 3306, the username is root, right? Okay, so we need to give the username is what? It is root. And then password, the password which is going to be 1234. Now you see the database is open. Now what we are going to do, we are going to give those credential informations in our code. Okay, so user URL name, and then that should be followed by password 1234. Okay, so now what we are going to do, so here we are going to be mention that database name. As of now, we are not created the database, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a database now. So how to create a database? So create database, and then that should be followed by the database name. Okay, so the database name I'm going to give is college info. I'm just going to click this thunder symbol. Now you see the database is get created. Now we want to check whether the database is created or not by using this refresh button. Now you see the database is created. Under this database, there is a no table is present. Now we are going to create a table. Okay, so so before we are going to create a table, we need to use the use command to ensure that whatever the command hereafter I'm going to type, so it's going to check it on this particular database. So I'm just going to click this thunder symbol, college info, use college info. I'm just going to click this thunder symbol. Yes, you see After I am running this command, this college info database name is going to be highlighted with bold color. Okay, so it's ensure that now the database chosen is college info. Now whatever the command here after I'm going to type, so that it is going to be check it on this particular database only. Now I'm going to create a table, create table, and then table name I'm just going to use is student data. Okay, so here I'm just going to create a four column. Okay, ID, name, department, and address. So ID, which is going to be what? Integer, and it is going to be what? Auto incremented and primary key. Primary key. And then I'm going to create one more variable, one more, that is a name, varchar, which is going to be type, size is going to be what? 255. Okay, so then I'm just going to create the another one, which is going to be what? Department. Okay, so here that type is going to be what? Varchar of 255. So we need to create one more, that is column, that is address. So varchar or 255. Now you see we created a table with four column. Okay, so now you see this is going to be created under this particular database college info. Now I'm going to execute this code. Now you see the table is get created. I'm just clicking the refresh button. Now you see the table is get created. Now as of now there is a no record is formed. Now what we are going to do? We are going to write the code in the Java applications, and we are going to check whether the data which is given on the Java application is get replicated on the database tables or not. For that, what we are going to do, so before that we need to mention the database name, right? Okay, so here we need to copy this database name, the database name which is having is college info. So here I'm going to give the college info. Now you see it's done. Okay, so now you see why it is throwing an error message over here. It's going to throw an error message because it is going to be surrounded by another catch block, that is SQL exception. Okay, so catch, I'm just going to be mentioned the exception is what? SQL exception. SQL exception, SQE, and then I'm just going to be print the information. Okay, so system sysout, here inside this I'm just going to be pass the information, or else I'm just going to print the object SQE. Yes, your SQE done. Okay. Now you see still we are having it. Why? Because we need to import. Okay, so we need to import from java.sql. Okay, done. Okay. So still why the setter is throwing an error message? Set name. Set name is already there. Okay, so because of saving issues, okay, so it's not saved properly. That's why it is throwing an error message. Now you see, we are going to move to the next one. That is, we are going to write the prepare statement, and then prepare statement is used for what? It is used for writing and query. Okay, so prepared statement. Okay, so PS equal to, and then I'm just going to write a query. Okay, so the query which I'm going to write it on here, so that will be going to be perform the operations into this particular database. So this database credential we required to perform all this operation. Who is going to hold the credential? Con is holding the credential. So that con dot, so here I'm just going to type the statement prepare statement. Here I'm going to write the query. For performing the insert operations, we are having the special query, that is insert query, right, in the database. So we are going to write the query over here. So that is insert into, so table name. Okay, so what is the insert query syntax? Insert into table name. Then we are going to pass the column name. What are the column we are having? We need to pass the exact column name. Okay, so column name here we are having is name, and then department. Okay, so name, sorry, name, comma, department, comma, address. These are the three columns we are having. Okay, so for this particular column, already we receive the values from the user. Okay, so here I'm going to pass the values. Okay, so values. So then I'm just going to be put three question mark. Why? Because later I'm going to be pass. Okay, so question mark, comma, question mark, comma, question mark. So I'm just going to pass the values for all this column now. Okay, so that is ps dot set string. Okay, so set string. Here you see. So in this set string, first it is going to be ask us to give the parameters in index, and then that should be followed by the values which we are trying to pass. Okay, so here I'm just going to be pass the parameters index, which is going to be 1 in that particular table. Okay, so in this particular table, 1 is the first column, right? Okay, so here in this I want to get the values for the name. Okay, so for which column we given first, it's a name, right? So we want to get the name, then only we need to pass the name from the Java applications to the database. So here you see, for assign the values, we are having the setter method. For receiving the values, we having the method which is called as a get method. For each variable, we having the get method. When you are trying to call the get method, it is going to be return the values which is present on this particular variable. So for example, for the set department, for get department, we are having the get. In case if you are going to call the get department, it is going to be return the department. In case if you are going to call the get address, it is going to be return the values which is there in the address variable. So now you see, I'm just going to pass the values. That is, what is the object for accessing the method which is there in the students registration class? For accessing the method which is present on the student registration is sr. So here I'm going to pass sr dot, then I'm just going to be pass get name. Now you see, we received the argument, we receive the value for the first column name. Then we need to receive the values for the second one, that is a department, right? Okay, so ps dot set string. This department also string, right? Okay, so that we going to call set string, and I'm going to pass the second argument that is a department. Here we are going to get the values from the for the particular variable. So for getting the values for the particular variable, we need to use sr dot get department, which is the next one, right? Okay, so then we are going to call the next one, that is ps dot set string. We are going to pass the values for the next one, that is 3 comma, what is the next one, address, right? Okay, so here you see, for getting the values for the address, we need to use sr dot get address. Now you see we done. Now you see we done. Okay, so here, after receiving all this thing, what's the next steps we need to follow? Okay, so what's the next step? So we finish the load the driver, we finish the establish the connection, we finish the prepared statement task. Okay, so now we need to perform the execute task. Okay, for performing the executions, which query is called, which object is holding the query? PS is the object is holding the query along with this values which it need to pass. So that we are going to use ps dot execute update. Okay, so execute update. Okay, so this method is going to execute this particular query. But how you coming to know this particular query is executed or not? Okay, so here you see, it is going to be return the values. If it is going to be other greater than 0, it is inserted successfully. To receive the values, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use the int method, int I is equal to ps dot execute. So here this ps.execute is going to be return some values. That values is going to be captured to the I variable. Here I'm going to check the condition. If I, which is going to be greater than 0, then I'm going to be pass the information sysout. In the sysout, I'm just going to pass the information inserted successfully. Inserted successfully. Okay, so or else what I'm going to do, I'm just going to be print the statement sysout sysout error in the insertion. Error in insertion. Done. Right? Okay. So now you see, we almost done the insertion operations. The only thing is we need to call this particular method in the main class. Okay, as of now, we are not written any main method. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write the main method. Okay, so here I'm going to write the main method. Under this main method, I'm just going to access the method which is there in this particular class, right? Okay, so for that, I need to create an object. Okay, so MC equal to new main class. Okay, semicolon. Then I'm going to access MC dot add data. MC dot add data. Okay, so here you see we are going to execute this code. As of now, there is a no data is present on this particular table. So now we are going to ensure that there is a no data is exists. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to uh, execute this program. Now I'm going to execute this program. Right click, run as Java application. Here it is asking the name. The name which I'm going to give is name, and then department which is going to be CSC, and then address which I'm going to give is India. Okay, so here you see the data is showing it's inserted successfully. Now we are moving to this database and we are going to run this query once again. Now you see the data which we given from the front end, it is inserted into the database. Now we are going to perform the other operation, that is a retrieval operation. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one separate method for performing the retrieval operations. So here I'm going to write one separate method for performing the retrieval operation. So, okay, so while, so it is going to be used, I'm going to use a method which is going to be get data. Okay, so here this get data method, uh, uh, first the thing. Okay, so here you see, in for getting the informations also, we need to use the same operation, load the driver and establish the connection. Okay, uh, so for that, what we are going to do, we are going to create one separate method which is going to be called this two line class dot for name and connection details. Whenever it's required, it is just going to be pass the information. So for that, what I'm going to do before I'm going to perform the get data operations, I'm just going to create one simple method that is a public. So static. So return type, I'm just going to be mentioned as connection. Okay, so the method name which is going to be connection, get connection, get connection. Okay, so here inside this, what this particular method is going to be written when we are going to call means it is going to be return the connections. So instead of writing this two lines for each per operations, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut this and I'm going to paste it over here. Okay, so why it is throwing the error means so it is going to be surrounded by the try and catch block. Okay, so here the cache block which we are going to use class not found exception, right? That's it. Now you see the error is gone. Okay, so here this is going to be what? SQL exception. Okay, so now you see when we are going to call this particular method, this method is going to return the connection. Who is going to call to the connection? Con, right? So finally we are going to return the con. Return con. That's it. So now the thing is we need to take these values to this particular add operation. How to perform this? So before that we are going to create one class variable which is called as a connection con, and I'm going to connection con or connection. Okay, so equal to null. I'm initially assigning default, I'm assigning some default value as a null. Okay, so here I'm just going to assign connection values. Okay, so how to assign the connection values means, so we need to call this particular connection method. Okay, so this is going to be static keyword so that within the classes we can call it directly without using okay, so why it is throwing error message means, so here we are create the connection con equal inside this particular try block, right? Okay, so connection con equal to null, or else we can go with this connection con equal to null. Done. Okay. So now you see, when I'm going to call this particular method, it is going to return this connection. So I'm just going to call this particular method on here. Connection is a variable which we are having over here. Here we are going to call the method that is get connection. Okay, so here also I'm going to change. Now it will work fine. Okay, now it will be going to work fine. So what I did is, so instead of creating this two statement, whenever I'm going to perform some CRUD operations, okay, so I'm going to create one method, which this method is going to be return the connection. Okay, for that initially I'm just going to initialize one variable connection con equal to null inside this particular block. Here I'm just going to create call the driver, add the driver, then I'm going to give the credential. Okay, so these two lines, we need to include these two catch block. One is class not found exception, another one is SQL exception. Okay, so here you see now the con is holding the entire credential. That is to perform the CRUD operation, any operations on the particular database. So this one is going to be return con. So what the con is going to be returned? When you are going to call this particular method, it is going to be return the URL and its credential. Okay, so here you see, in this add operations, we need the key to open the database when we are going to perform this CRUD operation, insert operation. So for that, I'm just going to call the get connection and I'm going to store the values into the which variable? Connection variable. Okay, so connection variable is what? It is a type of connection. So whenever I'm going to perform the in any insert operation, update operation, I'm going to use this get connection method. Okay, so here the next method we are going to perform is we are going to perform the um, retrieval operation. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use the void get data method. Void get data method. Here, I'm just going to write the method. That is, first we need the connection, right? Okay, so connection equal to get connection. Okay, then what's the next statement we are going to use? We are going to use the prepared statement. Okay, we need to write the query, right? PS equal to, so then I'm just going to write the query. Okay, so here for writing the query, we need the key to open the database, right? Okay, so then only we can able to perform any operation. Connection dot, so inside this, I'm just going to write the query. Okay, so prepare statement. Inside this, I'm just going to write select operation. Select star from the table name. What is the table name here we are using? The table name which we are using on here is student data. The data which we are using is student data. Select star from student data. So it's done, right? Okay. So now what we are going to do. So why it is throwing an error message means. So here we need to surround this block by using the try block. Okay. So now before that, I'm just going to use the execute statement. Okay. So here I'm going to, as I already told that when you are going to write the retrieval operation, it is going to be you return the values in the result set. So before that, I'm going to write the ps dot execute query method. Execute query. Okay, this method is going to be return the values in the result set. Here you see, this method is going to be return the values in the result set. So that what I'm going to do, I'm just going to store the values in the result set. So previously, execute update is going to be return the values in integer, but this execute query is going to be return the values in the result set. So that we are going to use the type rs is going to be type of result set. Now why it is throwing an error message means we need to import this packages. We need to import this packages result set. Okay, so now we need to surround this block under the try block. Okay, so we need to use the try block and we are going to surround it. Okay, so here this one is going to be throw an SQL exception. Catch SQL exception. SQLE. Okay, so here I'm just going to be print the statement. Sys out SQLE. Done. Okay, now you see the retrieval operation is done. Okay. Now we need to retrieve the values. Retrieval operation is done successfully, but we need to retrieve. As in the while I'm handling the looping statement, in the looping statement videos, I mentioned that when you're trying to access the data which you don't know the exact length means at the time you can go with the while loop, right? Same as here you see we don't know the exact data which is present on the particular table, so that we are going to use the while loop. Okay, so in the while loop we are going to use the statement that is rs is holding the values, right? rs dot has next method, that is a next method. Okay, so then it is going to be return the values. In case if the values is returned, okay, so if the values is present it is going to be true, right? Here we are going to print all the information one by one. That is rs dot get string. Okay, so here we are going to pass the index values on. Okay, so first I'm going to pass one. Let's check whether it is working fine or not. Then later we are going to be retrieve all these values. So first I'm just going to be called the get data. Instead of add data, I'm just going to be called directly get data. So let's check whether we are going to get the Vinod or not. Okay, so first I'm going to run this code. So it is returning one. Why? Ah, okay. So 0 and 2. Sorry. So because why it is returning 1 means, so we having the values 1 on here, right? Okay, so now I'm just going to run this program. Okay, so now you see we got the values. Okay, now we are going to be print all the values one by one. So first I'm just going to be print ID number, ID, student ID. Okay, so here I'm going to use rs dot get, uh it is a int, right? Okay, so get int of 0. Okay, so then I'm just going to print the next one, which is student name. So here I'm going to be pass one. So it is a string, right? Okay, so get string name department. So next one is department, right? Department. We need to give the exact order. So here you see first is going to be ID, name, department. The same order we need to give. Department, which is going to be what? 2, and then address. Student address. Get string of 3. Okay, so I hope we done it. Now we are going to run this program. Let's check whether we are getting the output or not. Okay. So we need to give in right order. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Sorry. So I need to give the right order. First column is in going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I'm just going to be run these values. I hope now we'll get the values right. Hope you understand how to perform the retrieval operations. So this is the code which is used for performing the retrieval operations from the database. Now you see we are going to perform the next operations, that is update delete operations. Then we proceed to the update operation. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write the one method. Okay, so that is the method which is used to perform the delete operation, delete data. Okay, so here I'm just going to get the input from the user. Okay, sys out, enter, enter, enter the ID you want to delete. Okay, so here I'm going to create one variable int ID. Here inside this, I'm just going to read the input from the user s dot next int. Same as once we receive the input operation, that is which ID we are going to delete, then the next as usual. So we need to perform this database operation. Okay, so first what we need to do, we are going to write the try block. Okay, so inside this try block, we need to hold the key, right, for opening the database for performing the operation. Who is holding the key? Get connection method. Okay, so as we already discussed, this get connection method is holding the key. That key is the credential, entire credential. Okay, so to access this method, we need to call this particular method on here. Already we created the connection variable on here. So now we are going to use the connection variable to hold this key. Okay, so here I'm just going to use the connection variable connection equal to get connection. So because we are using inside the same class, so we are not going to call by using the class name dot method name, because static method is going to be called by using the class name, right? Okay, now we holding the key now. So now we are going to write the query. Okay, so which method we are going to use to write the query? Prepare statement, right? Okay, so prepared statement. Okay, so ps equal to, then we need to write the query. This query is going to be open the database. For that, we need the key to open the database. Who is holding the key? Now the connection object is going to be hold the key. Connection dot. So then we are going to write the prepare statement. Inside this, we are going to write the query. So what is the query for deleting the data into the database? Deleting the data in the table. So delete from the database name, which is going to be what? Uh, Sorry, table name, which is what? Student data. Which is what? Student data. Delete from student. Here, we need to write the condition. So what is the condition for writing the conditions? We need to use the var class, and then that should be followed by the column and name. What is the column name? Here we are having the ID, right? Okay, so column and ID equal to, we need to pass the question mark. We need to pass the question mark. Why it is throwing an error means we need to use the catch block. In the catch block, we need to mention the SQL exception. Okay, so or else we can mention which is going to be root of all the exception. Okay, so SQL exception. Okay, so here I'm just going to use sys out. I'm just going to be print e. Okay, so here we are going to pass the values to the particular question mark. Okay, so how we are going to pass the values to the question mark? So we need to use ps dot set, which is int, right? Okay, set int. Okay, so here we are going to pass the values. First one is what? The parameter. Okay, so parameter we are having is 1, and then the second one is what? The id which we are having over here. In case if you are having any doubts on this, id for delete, I will write the variable name like this. Just I am going to pass the variable name over here. Okay, so this value which is given by the user, that is going to be stored it on this particular variable. Then we are going to assign the values to this particular question mark. Now you see we return the query as of now. What is the next step? So after return the query, what is the next step? We need to execute it. Okay, as I already told that for executing this query, we need to use the execute update method. Okay, so execute update method. This update method is going to be, how we coming to know this? The query is executed successfully means, so we are going to use this variable values. Int, sorry, here we need to write. Okay, so int I is equal to execute update. This I is going to be return values. If it is greater than 0, it is update deletion is done successfully. I, which is going to be greater than 0, so I'm just going to be print the information. So that is this out. Okay, so deletion done successfully, or else if not. Okay, sys out. Here I'm going to print the information error in deletion. Now you see, this is the coding for performing the deletion operation. First, what we are doing, we are receiving the values, then we are going to get the key to open the database for performing the deletion operation. This is a variable which is going to hold the key. Then we are going to write the query. For writing the query, we are going to use a prepare statement. So in that, I'm just going to create object ps. The connection is going to be a key which is used for opening the database. So by using the key, I'm just going to write the query. Then I'm going to assign the values to the particular question mark, and then I'm just going to execute it. So after the executing this, it is going to be return the values which is greater than 0. So it is going to be what? Deletion done successfully, or else it is going to be throw error in deletion. Okay, so now you see, so this particular all this statement is going to be comes under the SQL exception. So I'm just going to use the SQL exception in the catch block. So now you see, so now I'm just going to, instead of calling this get data, I'm just going to be called the delete data method. Okay. I'm just removing the get data method. I'm going to put the delete data method. So done. Okay. So now I'm going to run this program. Let's check whether we are getting this output or not. Okay. So here you see, it is asking enter the ID you want to delete. Okay. So I'm just going to be pass 1 and press enter. So after the certain time, it is telling that deletion is done successfully. Let's check the database. As of now, you see, we are not executing this query. Now I'm going to execute this query. Okay. So now you will find there is no data is present. Okay. So insertion is it's done. Retrieval is done, then deletion also done. So now what we are going to do, the next one is going to be what? Update operation. Okay, the same thing in the update operations. I'm just going to be write the void update, void update. Okay, so here in the update operations, we need to get all the information once again from the user. We need to get ID, which ID you want to update, and then name, address, and then department. We need to receive all the input. Okay, so for that, I'm just going to use a sysout method. Sysout method, I'm just going to ask the user, enter ID you want to perform. You want to perform update operations. So after that, user is going to give the values, right? Okay, so I am going to, instead of storing the values in particular variable, in previous deletion operations, what we did is we created one separate variable, right? Okay, separate variable for deleting the values. Okay, so what I'm going to do, instead of creating like this, here I'm just going to use the Pojo class, this method. Okay, so here you see we are having the getter and setter for the ID variable, right? Okay, I'm going to use that. Okay, so we can use whether you want to declare the variable here and then you can get the values, that also okay, or else you can use the getter and setter. Okay, so here I'm going to use the getter and setter method. Okay, so sr dot set id. Okay, so here once the user is going to give the values, we need to capture, right? Okay, so for that we are having the scanner class object s dot next int, s dot next int. Okay, so once the user is going to give the values, that values is going to be assigned to the id through the setter. Okay, so here you see that setter is going to receive the input from the user and assign to this value from the local argument variable to the class variable id. Now you want to get the values, means you need to use the getter method. Now it's done. Okay, so we receive the input. Okay, so now we need to receive the next values. We need to ask the user to enter the name and all those things once again. Sys out. Okay, so here I'm going to pass enter the name. Enter the name. Okay, so now user is going to give the values. Same as I'm just going to call sr dot set name. Sr dot set name. Here I'm going to pass the argument, the values which is going to given by the user, like this. Okay, so the user given values is going to be read and it is going to be called the set name. This set name is going to be called, and then values which is given by the user is going to be hold by the name variable and the name to this dot name. Okay, so it is going to be assigned from the argument variables to the class variable name. That is the variable here we are having, right? It is going to assign to it. Okay, so now we are going to get the values for the next other two variables, which is the department and address. Okay, so here inside this I'm just going to give enter the department. Okay, so here we are having same sr dot set department. Okay, set department. Here I'm going to use s dot next method. S dot next method. Okay, so then sys out um sys out, I'm just going to ask the user enter the address. Okay, so here I'm going to use sr dot set address. Here I'm going to pass s dot next. Done. So as of now, we read all the input from the user. Now we are going to perform the database operation. Okay, so what is the steps for performing the database operation? We need to load the driver and establish the connection. It is already we having the code on the method which is called as a get connections. When we are going to call the get connection, it is going to be written these two things. So we are going to have the variable connection to hold the values which is written by the get connection method. Okay, so this get connection method. Okay, so now I'm just going to hold the connection variable connection equal to get connection. Okay, so get connection. Now this connection is holding the values. Okay, so now I'm going to after receiving the connections, we need to write the query, right? Okay, so what is the next one? We need to write the query. Okay, so PS equal to connection dot prepare statement. Okay, so this connection is holding the key to open the database. Now, after we need to write the query, then we need to perform the execution operation. We need the key to open it. This connection object is holding it. Okay, so here we are going to write the update query. Okay, so what is the update query? So the syntax you need to know, right? Update table name. What is the table name? Here we are having student data. Okay, so the table name we are having is student data. Update table and then set column name. What are the column name? Here we are having the column name here we are having is name, right? Okay, so set name equal to question mark and then what is the other variable? Name department. We need to give the exact variable name, otherwise it will throw an error message. For this better, you can just copy this column name from here and then paste it over here. Okay, so department question mark. Then I'm just going to give the address equal to question mark. Okay, so then I'm just going to write the conditions. Okay, so where I want to update all this information, where id equal to question mark, where id equal to question mark. Okay, so here we need to pass the values to this question mark. Okay, so here you see why it is throwing the error means we need to surround this by using the try block. Try, we are going to surround this by all this statement. And then what type of exception it is going to be throw means it is going to throw an SQL exception. Catch SQL exception. SQLE object we are going to create. SQLE. Okay, so here I'm just going to print this information. Sys out. I'm going to print SQLE. Okay, done. Okay, so now you see we return this query, right? Okay, but we as of now we are not pass any argument to this question mark. We need to pass argument to the question mark, so that we are going to use s dot set string. Okay, set string. I'm just going to be pass argument for one. I'm just going to be pass. What is the first question mark? It's a name, right? Okay, so we are going to call sr dot get name. Okay, so then we are going to pass the values for the department. So for passing the values to the department, we need to use ps dot set string. Sorry, set string not. It is a yeah ps dot set string. Okay, okay. So here we are going to pass for push values for the second question mark, which is the department. So two. Okay, so then sr dot get uh, department. Okay, so then ps dot set string. Here I'm going to pass the values for the third question mark, which is address, right? Okay, so 3 comma sr dot uh, get address. Okay, so now you see the second last question mark, which is going to be id, which is the int, right? So that ps dot set int. Okay, so here 4 comma sr dot get id. Now you see, we assign the values to all the question mark. Now we need to perform the execution operations. Okay, as I already told that insert, update, delete. For all this operation, which method we need to use means we need to use the execute update method. Okay, so execute update. Okay, so here this method is going to be return the values. 0 means it's not inserted, 1 means what? Inserted successfully. Int I is equal to, I'm just going to store the values which is going to be returned by this particular method. Okay, so here I'm going to check the condition. If I, which is going to be greater than 0, I'm just going to be print the information update. System.out.println sys out. Okay, so I'm just printing the information update done successfully. Update done successfully. Okay, or else if the insertion is done not done. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write sys out error in error in update. That's it. Okay, so now you see the query which is written over here is, I'm just going to explain once again for the update operations. So what I did, I'm just going to collect the values from the user. All the values I'm just going to be passed through the Pojo classes, that is a student registration. From there I'm just going to get it. So for that Pojo class for the student registration, we need to access it, right? Okay, so that we are going to create an object for this particular classes, student registration. Okay, this classes, student registration classes. Okay, this class. Okay, so we created object on this particular class so that we can able to access all the methods and variable which is present over here. Okay, so here this SR is object, right? Okay, so we are going to perform the update operation, means we need to get the input from the user. So SR dot set int, we are going to get the values for the ID, and then we are going to get the values for the name, and then we are going to get the values for the department, and we are going to get the values for the address. Once we receive the address, we need to follow the database operation steps. What is the first steps? We need to get the connection. We need to open the database. Then only we can able to perform the update operation. For that, we need the credential. This get connection method, which we are having on here, is going to return the values, is the credential which is used for performing this operation, database operation. Okay, so it's going to be written the connection information, connection key to perform the update operation. Okay, so now the connection variable is holding the values which is going to be written by the get connection. Okay, so here you see prepare statement, as I already told that prepare statement is used to write and query. Okay, so now we are going to create an object of the prepare statement. Then we need to perform the database operation. We need to open the database. For that we need the key, right? Okay, so here we are going to have the key connection dot prepare statement. Inside this we are going to write the update query. Okay, so this is the update query. Okay, here you see for all the variable column we are going to pass the values in the below statement, so that we are going to put the question mark. Okay, so now the PS is holding the entire query. Then I'm just going to call the PS dot set string. For the first question mark I'm going to pass the name. Okay, so second question mark I'm going to pass for the department. Third question mark I'm going to pass the values for the address. And then fourth question mark I'm going to pass the values for the ID. So once we pass the values to it, then it is ready for execution. Okay, so this PS is holding the query, right? Okay, so query along with this value. So we are going to use the PS object dot execute update. This execute update is going to be return the values. That value we are going to store it on the I. If the values is going to be less than 0, it is going to be the insertion is not done successfully. If it is going to be greater than 0, the insertion is done successfully. We are going to print the information execution done, that is update done successfully. So here you see this block is going to be throw the exception, which is SQL exception, so that under this try block we are going to cover this type of exception is going to be thrown in future. Now you see in the main method, so as of now, there is no data is present. First, what we are going to do, we are going to perform the insert operation. Then we are going to perform the update operation. So I'm just going to perform the insert operation first. Okay. So mc dot add. Okay. So add data, and then mc dot update data, update method. What is the method name? It is update data. We can fix it as update data. Okay. So here I'm just changing the method name, which is going to be update data. Done. Okay, so now I'm just going to run this code. First, it is going to be add the information, then it is asked for the update of update. Okay, so before performing this update operation, we need to. Okay, so we are already printing, right? Okay, it asking the name. I'm just going to give the name as we know. Department is what, CSE, and the address is what, India. Here it perform the insertion operation is done successfully. Now it is going to be asked the ID which you want to perform the update operation. Now we are going to check what ID values it's having. It's 2, right? Okay, so now you see I'm just going to be passed 2. Why? Because already we deleted one record, right? It is auto generated. Okay, so that the one record is deleted, the next record is going to be 2. Okay, so here you see it is asking the name which you want to update. Okay, so here you see instead of Vinod, okay, what values here we are having? Vinod, right? Okay, so I'm just going to be print Vinod Kumar Selvarasan. Okay, so this is the values I want to store. Department, I'm just going to be type it as CSC, and then India, I'm just going to be type it in India in capital format, both. Okay, so now you see the Vinod is going to be Vinod Kumar, CSC is going to be in capital, and India is going to be in capital. Now I'm going to press enter. Now you see update is done successfully. Okay, so now I'm going to click the refresh button. Now you see the values is get updated. Now we perform all the operation. But one drawbacks we are facing is, so here whenever the user is going to perform this operation, each time we need to change this method name, right? Okay, so it is a completely wrong methodologies. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create one while loop. So this while loop, it is going to be ask the suggestion from the user. Okay, so if the values is given by the user. Okay, so 1 for insertion, 2 for deletion, 3 for update, 4 for deletion. Okay, so likewise we are going to print the information and we are going to ask the input from the user. Okay, so for that what I'm going to do in the sysout, in the sysout statement, in the sysout statement, I'm just going to be print the statement. Enter the operation you want to perform. Enter the operation you want to perform. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put slash n, one for add, and slash n, two for get information, get data, and or retrieval. Okay, so or retrieval, retrieve, so get info. I'll just make it as get info itself. Okay, so slash n, here I'm just forgot to put the slash n over here. Slash n space, okay, get info, and then I'm going to put one more space, 3 for deletion, slash n, 4 for update. Okay, so now you see, after seeing this statement, user is going to give the values, right? Okay, so for that I'm just going to have one variable int choice. Okay, so equal to scanner object what, s dot. So what is a scanner object? It is what is a scanner object? It is yes, it's there in the class. So I'll do one thing. I'll create the scanner classes on here. Scanner s equal to new scanner system dot in. Okay, so now I'm just going to get the input next int. Okay, so once the user is going to give the choice, I'm just going to use the switch statement. Switch, I'm going to pass the choice. Okay, so here if the user is going to give the 1, what I need to do, I'm just going to make a call to the add information, that is mc dot add. Okay, so add data. Okay, so then break. Okay, so then case 2. The case 2, what is the case 2? For get information, right? mc dot get data. Then break. Then case 3, what is the case 3? It is mc dot uh, deletion, delete data. Okay, so what it is? Break. After that it is going to be break. Done. Okay, so now we are moving to the next one, next option. What is the fourth one? It is update operation, right? So case 4. The what is the case 4? The case 4 is what? Update operation. That is mc dot update, update data. So break. Okay, so we need to give one more options, that is a 5 for exit. Okay, so slash n 5 dot delete. Sorry, exit. Okay, done. Okay, so now I'm just going to write case 5. Case 5, what it is? It is going to be return. Okay, so then we are going to write default option also. what is the default options? We are going to write sys out enter valid data. Okay, done. I think we done. Okay, so what I did previously, whenever we are going to perform any operations, we are going to change the method name in the main method. So instead of this, I'm just going to create a one scanner classes for reading the input choice from the user. And I'm going to write the while statement. If the while statement is true, it is keep on asking the user suggestion. Okay, so 1 for add, 2 for get, and 3 for delete, 4 for update, 5 for exit. Okay, so then we are going to read the input from the user. Then we are going to store it on the variable choice. Okay, so then we are going to pass the values to the switch case, and then if the user is going to give 1, then we are going to call the mc.add data, then it is break. In case if you not understand much about the switch statement, please go on through the videos for the switch statement, which is I uploaded on the condition statement videos. Okay, so then we are going to once the user is going to give 2, so it is going to be called mc.get data, then it is going to be break. Likewise we are going to give. Okay, so now you see we are given the choice for the user. Okay, so now I'm just going to run this program. Okay, so here it is going to give the options. Okay, so now you say I'm just going to give 1. Okay, so now I'm just going to give the information which is going to be Ashok Kumar, and then department is what, CSE, and then address is what, India. Okay, so now you see the data is inserted successfully. Now we are going to get the information, right? So I'm going to give 2 now. Okay, so now you see it is printing 2 persons information. One is Vinod Kumar Selvarsan, another one is what, Ashok Kumar. Now you see I'm just going to perform the deletion operation. Okay, so here I'm just going to give 3, and the values which I want to delete is, so it is going to be what, 2. Okay, so now you see the data is deletion successfully. Now we need to check whether the data is deleted successfully or not. So by typing 2 for getting the information. Okay, so now you see we are having only Ashok Kumar as output, so the data 2 is get deleted. Okay, so now I'm just going to give the option 4. Okay, so now it is asking which ID you want to delete, update. Okay, so I'm just going to give 3. It is asking the name which you want to update on this particular locations. Okay, so I'm just going to give with Ashok Kumar Silverson. Okay, so here I'm going to give the department as mechanical, and then address which is going to be what, Chennai. Okay, so now you see the data is updated successfully. Now I'm going to press 2 to ensure the updation is done successfully or not. So press 2. Now you see the data is updated successfully. Now we are going to check it on the database. So now I'm going to click the thunder symbol. Here you see, here also it's get updated. Okay, so now hope you understand this. If I'm going to give 5, what will be going to happen? So the program is going to be get terminated. Okay, so here return false. I need to give. Okay. Mm, no, no, no. So return statement need to what? So it need to stop the execution. I don't know why. Okay. So hope you understand this. Hope you understand this execution flow of this CRUD operations on the JDBCs. In case if you like this video, please share this video with your friends. Don't forget to click the subscribe and bell button. Thank you.